Hello, everyone. Welcome to Non Sequitur Nerds once again. Tonight, we're going to need you to be kind and please rewind because we're talking about content delivery tonight. And yes, for those of you that actually get what I mean by be kind, rewind, we're old enough for VHS and Betamax. Anyway, as always, I am Tim, joined by my buddy Ian. How's it going tonight, bud?
We're going pretty good tonight, Tim. First and foremost, an apologies to those of you in viewer land. I am remote right now, currently recording this from the middle of BFE nowhere, Indiana,
I do
down
that
at my
every
parents'
week.
house. Right, down at my parents' house. So I'm using a craptastic onboard webcam and wired Samsung uh, earbuds.
It
So
works.
yeah. Anyway. Oh yeah, content delivery. We talked previously, about different streaming services and how we ingest content these days. But let us rewind
I see what you
time.
did there.
Yeah, let us grab your pencils and turn back the cassette tapes because we're gonna rewind time as we
Um,
go and talk about content. Yeah, we're full of the puns tonight.
Man, yeah, I forgot when you had to rewind a tape like using a pencil or something. Man, back before automatic rewind. For those of you who don't know what a cassette is, it's how do you describe a cassette to people that probably only know what an iPod is? And even that
Uh,
some people might not know what an iPod is.
Right. So, for those of you who were born after 2000, so you Zoomers, um, a cassette tape is a plastic tape, probably about yay big. What do you say? 8 inches by 4 inches, roughly.
You talking VHS or audio cassettes?
Well, VHS.
Oh, I was gonna say because audio cassettes were like that big. I'm like, what is he talking about?
Well, yeah. So, VHS tapes and audio cassettes as well. They were both forms of media consumption. VHS tapes we used for being able to watch recorded TV and movies back in the day.
Yep.
And cassette tapes were how we ingested, audio back in Tim and I's day. There was also things called 8 tracks, which are like,
That's a little before us though.
yeah, they're kind of like these weird, like, I mean, they're not quite vinyl, but they were like the next step after vinyl.
Right.
Not quite all. But anyway, so yeah, these little cassette things that you stuck inside of a machine, and it played music. Actually, to things kind of like this, except they were much bigger. They actually looked like antennas. So but yeah, so content delivery. We're gonna kind of start, I think, probably with Tim and I's era, which is going to be the era of single-use media consumption. Really.
Yep.
So when we were first born, and we not really when we were first born, I guess, but when our first real exposure to these was, you if you wanted to watch something, you had to buy it outright.
Yeah.
Like you went to the local store, and they usually had like a rack of movies or something, and you just picked what was there, and you paid for it, and you took it home, and you then owned it for the
You
rest of
owned
your life.
a plastic box that had your movie on it. And you're like, I mean, again, like I feel bad having to explain these things, but there probably are some listeners and viewers that don't know these things. DVDs and Blu-rays today, you can pick a scene and boom, it's right there. VHS, like you had to, if you were at the beginning of the tape, you had to start it there, and if you wanted to get to a spot, you had to fast forward and manually go through, like scrubbing on an iPhone or an Android, you had to manually go through until you find a spot and then play it there. If when you got to the end of
Yeah,
the movie you wanted to watch it again, you didn't just go to the main menu and click on a button. There's no menus. It's all just there. You had to
yeah,
rewind it and play it from there.
and these magic content devices that we all carry around in our pockets, you didn't play a VHS or a tape or anything like on those. You had to have a dedicated box, a
Yep.
VHS player that sat connected to your television, that you had to switch the inputs, or maybe change it to like channel 3 or
Channel
something like
3,
that.
yep.
Channel 3. 4 if you were like some kind of like weirdo that for some reason had that input, or one of those dongle switches that you could switch like the input. So
Like
channel 3 or channel.
nobody that I knew that had that switch on their tape player ever set it to channel 4. I don't know like if there was like some weird regional thing where channel 3 was in use, but like nobody I knew ever used anything other than channel 3.
The only time that I think you would use it is if you were using like for some reason, if your television had double coax ins,
Mhm.
you could have like the Nintendo hooked up to it. Because if you remember,
Right.
the Nintendo coax also had the Switch.
Yeah, that's
So
true. But the Nintendo coax box also had the coax screw on the back of it, so you could use it as a pass through as well, if you remember that.
true.
So
Yeah, true,
again,
true.
really dating ourselves here. Coax, like I think it's funny. We went from coax cables, which were one cable, then we went to AV, which was the red, white, and yellow because one cable bad, and then we went to composite, which was the your red and white for audio, and then blue, red, and green for video because more cables good, less cables bad. And then we went to HDMI, which one cable good, more cables bad. We've gone full circle now from one cable being bad to one cable being good.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about that, talk about size matters and everything. I mean, look at the original iPod. I mean, the original iPod was kind of a little tiny thing. It just had the little dial wheel on it. Like
Yeah.
there was no digital display or anything.
Right.
And then it got bigger.
Right.
And then it got bigger. And then it got really small when they did the iPod Nano. And then it got bigger. And then then they went to the iPod Touch.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And then they're like, "Well, I kind of want it smaller." And now people have like iPhones that are roughly the size of a tablet.
Yeah.
Like you might as well just solder a tablet to somebody's hand because they're walking around with this behemoth cancer machine next to their face, trying to talk on it. And let's admit, nobody really uses a smartphone to talk on. They use it to send text messages and look at funny cat.
Consume media. Which brings us back to our point. And like Ian said, if you wanted to watch a movie or if you wanted to listen to music, you couldn't just go on the internet. Well, I mean, you could go on the internet and get it, but it wasn't as, let's just put it bluntly, it wasn't as legal to do as it is today. Or there was, my alternative growing up in, the middle of nowhere, you'd go to a rental store. You'd go to, your local mom and pop video shop. We didn't have red boxes. I mean, Blockbuster, if you remember Blockbuster, they were, the Starbucks of rental places back in the day. They were everywhere. For me, I had a little local town run by a guy who lived in town video shop. He carried VHSs. Then when DVDs came out, he carried DVDs. He started carrying video games because I was in there all the time and was always asking when he would rent video games. I think
he was the BFE Nowhere version of the comic book guy.
Yeah, okay, you remember? Gary, I think his name was.
Gary, his name was Gary. Yeah, I remember Gary.
Yep. He really was. He was comic book guy. I mean, like. He looked like him. I wouldn't say he was as snobby, but I mean, if you rented a movie that was a bad movie, he'd be like, "Oh, you're renting this? That's
well, you're the one that decided to carry it."
Right? Like, why carry it to let me rent it if you're going to tell me it's a bad movie?
Yeah, exactly. But so here's actually a fun bit of trivia for you. So we mentioned this at the beginning of the session. Betamax and VHS. They were both competing formats. Betamax was, I believe, Sony.
I think so. I mean, or at least they were one of the pioneers of like trying to push it.
Right. Betamax was actually a smaller format than VHS. However, as is most things in the world, the winner was decided by the porn industry. Because the porn industry decided, it's really true. The porn industry standardized on VHS tapes, and everybody wanted to consume their smut. So they had to go.
This is before the days of the internet again.
Yes, they had to go. The red light district was still around, but that was a little expensive to get there. And you didn't want to consume anything that was on the red light district.
Yeah.
But yeah, so VHS won out because people wanted more.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it boiled down to. But going back to my prior point, because I feel like, if we're talking about media consumption, I'd be neglecting my duties if I didn't say anything. Speaking of bad movies, Are You a Bowl Counter is currently now at 21 counts and going. So I had bad movies. It was a good segue, all right?
Yeah.
But no, it's the Be Kind Rewind thing that I mentioned at the top of the show, since we're talking about movies and whatnot. What that was, like I had said, when you finished watching a VHS, to get to the beginning, you had to rewind it. So a lot of rental stores would actually put stickers on the cassettes or on the boxes that said, "Be kind, please rewind," to remind you, hey, go ahead and rewind it so that the next person that rents it can watch it from the beginning. Because if you stopped the movie in the middle for whatever reason and returned it, when the next person went to go play it, and if they hit play, it would start from where you left off.
Right.
So it's not
And
like
you would
our
be labeled a dick.
yeah, so it's not like our modern, like, you know, if you pop in a Blu-ray now and you watch it 3/4 of the way through and you go to watch it again, you know, whatever player you're playing it on knows this is where you left off and it'll pick it up right there. But if you take that disc, like if I watched a Blu-ray at my house and took it over to Ian's, it would start at the beginning because his player obviously is different than mine. A VHS tape, it was effectively saved, for lack of a better term, onto the media itself. So if I watched a VHS tape halfway through and took it over to Ian's and hit play, it would start off at the point that the actual physical tape was stopped at. So I mean, it's a little different, but I know some rental places actually, if you returned a tape that wasn't rewind, they would put like a $1 charge on your account of a rewinding fee. Not all of them did that, but it's mainly the ones that had problems with people like continuously bringing stuff back not rewound. But yeah, I mean VHSs, they were like quality wise compared to, you know, like 4K Blu-rays and things like that of today, obviously not even a comparison. With, you know, Blu-ray discs and even DVD discs, as long as you take care of the disc, the quality of the video will never degrade. That's the great thing about it. With VHSs, there's all kinds of things that could happen because it was literally used kind of a strip
It's
of
celluloid, you know, it's celluloid, you know, film strip.
Yeah, like
really.
like a fiber film strip, effectively. I mean, fiber's not even the right word for it, but
like a vinyl or something like that.
Yeah. Like plastic. Think of it like a roll of Scotch tape, but two of them side by side feeding into each other. It's kind of how the best way to describe it. But those things could get, if your tape player like skipped or whatnot, or if somebody ran across the room, that strip of film is very, very thin. That could get tangled up. It could actually rip it. They were prone to, like, if dust got on there, that would make the quality of the video go down. I mean, any number of things. So I mean, it was a convenient format for the time. It is very finicky, especially compared to stuff today.
Well, yeah, and if you look, you talk about quality. I mean, I think probably back in the day, if you had a really good TV, a really good player, and a pristine tape, you could get like 480.
Yeah, I mean, 480p, and that was like high tier.
Right. Typically, you're talking like, you know, 260 or something like that, if you're lucky.
Yeah, TVs back in the day were not built for high resolution.
No, they weren't.
Although one thing that TVs had back in the day is like they had like a nil refresh rate on them. Or a latency, excuse me. So I mean, that's why, like, if you see a lot of people that collect vintage consoles, they will pick up old TVs. One, because those consoles were designed for that kind of technology. They will look better, and the latency between pushing a button on a controller and it actually happening on screen is damn near non-existent. Versus, like, you see, like, TVs and monitors today, everybody looks at the refresh rate and the response rate on them, you know, 2 milliseconds, 1 millisecond, you know, 40 milliseconds. I feel bad for the people that have that. But you didn't have that on old TVs because the way the technology was built, there was no latency on it. So, I mean, there is something to be said about older tech. I mean, video, like, visual quality-wise, monitors and TVs today are leaps and bounds ahead of what we had as kids. But there's kind of that trade-off. Is it looks better, but there's latency on the screen.
Yeah, in that, you know, it's, for some people like me, I really visually can't tell. I mean, I have terrible vision, obviously.
Right.
Like, I can't really tell the difference between, you know, like, you know, UHD and 4K and stuff like that. Like, I noticed, you know, some more better color definition, but I'm not sitting there like, I can't sit there and like tell the difference. Now, I can tell the difference between like 1080 and 720.
Yeah.
Or, you know, 1080 and, you know, 480 or, you know, 480 because it's like, oh, I can count the pixels.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so like we grew up with, you know, that kind of quality. That was perfectly fine for us.
Yeah, I mean,
kids nowadays, right? You kids nowadays complain about your monitor not being 120 millisecond refresh, you know, millihertz refresh rate or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And, you know, we're sitting there on a screen roughly the size of your laptop trying to watch an entire television show. In 260, and you're going, I can't tell if he shot the gun or if he threw it.
Right. Well, I mean, or heck, you know, like I remember, like when Mom got her projection TV, like that was like mind blowing because it was such a huge screen. Until a bulb burned out on it, and they're like, "Oh, I can see 2/3 of the screen," or "Well, I can see some of the colors." You know, so I mean,
Right.
there were. It's interesting for us, like since we're talking media consumption. It's for me particularly. It's really interesting because, like, I've seen so many media formats come and go. Like, I mean, you know, from VHS, we went into DVDs, we went into Blu-rays, we went into 4K Blu-rays. You know, now we're starting to see the rise of, and I'm getting ahead of ourselves here. We're starting to see the rise of digital consumption. But same thing with the way you view it. I mean, we've gone from tube TVs to projection TVs. There was that 3D TV fad. You know, now we're in 4K TVs. There's 8K TVs. I mean, isn't there wasn't there a company that like showed off like a 100K TV as a proof of concept, or it was some astronomical number that you won't see for years? And now I say that and it'll be out in 5 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that that particular project cost about as much as a football stadium these days.
Yeah.
Probably a football stadium in a crappier city like Cleveland or something.
Yeah, no disrespect to our Cleveland listeners.
No, totally disrespectful to our Cleveland listeners. Cleveland sucks.
They know.
But they're
We're gonna get hate mail now.
probably. I mean, I would just like mail. Period.
I mean, yeah.
Whatever.
Send us a message on Facebook. Good time to plug it.
Exactly. But we keep kind of circling back at to like the old media, like Be Kind Rewind and things like that. And it just reminds me of if you were if you had like one of the older VHS players, or you weren't quite as well off as some other people, like you didn't have the auto rewind or
Dude,
even a remote.
auto rewind was a game changer.
You literally had to go up there and sit in front of this box and hold your finger on the button in order to rewind it.
If you let go, it would stop.
Lucky, right? If you were lucky, you could get it to not do it at the same time as it was trying to display it on screen, because that made it go faster.
Yeah.
If you were lucky. Sometimes you could push the button, like hold the button, and it would just like rewind it real quick. Sometimes though, it would like actually display it, but it would rewind it slowly because it was it would be playing in reverse,
which sometimes made for some really funny moments. Not gonna lie.
Oh sure, yeah, sure, absolutely. The same thing with like fast forward and stuff. Like you literally had to go up there, and then the advent of the remote control was, oh my god, I don't have to sit in front of the box anymore and do it. And then you got the occasions where somebody would have like a separate unit just for rewinding, like just one of those pop-in rewinding stations.
I think one of my uncles had one of those where literally you had a box to play the movie. He had a separate box. You take the movie out, put it in the second box, and the second box does nothing but rewind it for you.
Yeah, that's literally its entire purpose.
Yeah, because some VCRs did not have a rewind function. So they created a separate box to do that for you, so you didn't have to manually sit there turning the spools of film to rewind it.
Well, I still say that the greatest shyster invention of our age was when DVDs first started coming around, and people were selling the DVD rewinders. Do you remember those?
I thought that was just a joke. That's the thing that actually. Really?
No. Like, I mean, they weren't like marketed in like Walmart and stuff like that. Yeah. But if you go to like behind the 7-Eleven to the dude that had like the van full of bootleg VHS tapes or stuff like that, they actually had like DVD rewinders. It was mostly to, it was catering, trying to prey on the older crowd that didn't understand the technology and things like that. Like,
I'm not sure if that's genius or evil. I'm not sure which one that is.
Evil genius. Yeah, so media consumption has changed. Here's another fun fact for you folks. I think I read this maybe late last year, earlier this year.
All right.
Sony has officially retired their VHS productions.
They were still doing it?
Yes. Up until I think 2020, they were still producing VHS tapes and VHS players.
Well, I mean, now that I think about it, it was only a couple years ago that Nintendo finally said, hey, we're no longer going to service NES systems.
Right.
So, I mean, it's odd when you think about the fact that there were still new release movies coming out on VHS up until, a couple years ago.
it wasn't
Was
it
it what?
wasn't so much they were producing new movies
Yeah.
on those tapes. They were just producing the tapes
Oh, okay.
so that and a lot of times what would happen is, like Tim was saying, VHS tapes get worn out.
Yeah.
Like they will wear out and they'll degrade and decay over time,
Mhm.
where like the film itself will degrade and decay, and so they'll eventually just like wear out. The film will snap, or the quality will just degrade so badly that it's unwatchable. So
Yeah.
archivists, like people that are archiving stuff and things like that, would sometimes copy tapes over to newer tapes in order to preserve them. So because converting to DVD and digital media and stuff like that, it's still time consuming.
Yeah.
You can't always convert that stuff, but you may still want to keep records of some of these things.
Right.
There was a lot of stuff.
Huh.
There was a lot of stuff that was on VHS back in the day.
Yeah.
That people want to keep around, kind of like your parents' porn collection. Which was also a fun thing when you could when you get a DVD or not a DVD, a VHS from the local shop, and someone has taped over it porn.
I was gonna say funny story about that. So, as Ian kind of alluded to, with like if you buy a DVD and it's got a movie on it, that's all that will ever be on there is a movie. VHS tapes, you could actually record other stuff onto. So let's say there was a program on TV that you really liked. You could record it manually onto a VHS tape and watch it again at your leisure later. And if you got done, like if it was a movie and you were done watching it, you're never going to watch it again. Well, hey, another movie's coming on, tomorrow night that I want to record. You pop in your movie, hit record, it will literally just record over the thing that was there before. So when I was a kid, and I know if if my dad ever hears this, he's going to kill me for telling this story. But when I was a kid, I had a VHS tape of Disney's Lady and the Tramp, one of their classic films. Well, partway through, there was a different Lady and Tramp doing things that I had never seen adults do.
He was tramping her lady.
Yeah, he was. So I'm sitting there watching Lady and the Tramp, and then porn comes on. And I think it's my mom walks in and says, "What are you watching?" I popped in Lady and the Tramp. And she's pissed at me. So she goes up, she hits a jack, pulls it out, looks at it, and says, "This does say Lady and the Tramp on it." And I see her look and then run. And all I hear is her yelling at my dad. He's like, "I don't know how it got on there." Now, keep in mind that this is when we had gotten satellite internet, which, we have Dish TV or Dish Network, all those kind of things. Back in the day, the dishes for those things were, like, easily 5 times larger. I mean, they were huge, huge satellite dishes you had to mount prominently in your front yard. And, of course, there were channels that you could pay to view just 1 or 2 movies on. I mean, they still have that on Dish Network. I've never bought one, but I will go through and look at the titles and laugh because some of them are hilarious. But that's another show. That's our After Dark episode. But, so yeah, you could record any movie over any other movie. Now, some VHSs had a little, like, security tab on them that you had to manually flip if you wanted to record it. A lot of movies that were, like, produced, like, to bring home, like, Disney films, actual movies, had that little security tab removed on it so that you couldn't record over them. Some VHSs did, though, so.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway, so VHSs, I mean, that's kind of what we grew up with, but we saw a transition into a different media, which was DVDs, which, I mean, when that came out, it was very much another format war, because VHSs were what everybody already had the players for, DVDs were something new, you had to get entirely new equipment for, and whereas you can walk into Walmart now and buy a DVD player for, $10-20, back when they came out, these were multi-$100 pieces of equipment. I mean, there was also a Laserdisc, too, which was kind of trying to compete.
I was just going to say.
And Laserdiscs were the size of vinyl records.
If not bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they were really more
standard
marketed
CD size.
Right. They were more marketed to... The Laserdiscs, I think, were more marketed to schools and things like that, because you could have, like, interactive programs and things like that.
Well, they were marketed towards schools and audio video enthusiasts, because if I remember right, I think Laserdiscs actually had better audio quality on them, if I remember right. I never owned a Laserdisc. I owned some Laserdiscs from a family member that gave them to me because they were collectible and like I could never get rid of them until I traded them all to a guy for like $500. So I'm like, cool, that's better than sitting in my. I mean, it was like a milk carton crate size of laser discs. That thing had to weigh like a lot more than what you'd think it would. But I'm like, good. It's out of my house.
These were not small. They're not small things, and the player for them was huge too.
Like the size of a large Pizza Hut pizza. I mean, they were big.
Yeah, they were massive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we saw this shift in we really kind of touched on it a little bit. You know, the movie store, the rental place, and whatnot. You know, you had your rentals that you'd go and pick up DVD, or you'd pick up your video games, you pick up your VHS tapes, you pick porn. You know, the back room.
And they always had those like hippie beads hanging in front of the door to the porn room. Like was that a requirement that you had to have Because I know they had to make it to where you couldn't just wander in there on accident. But all of them had hippie beads. Like,
I think it was a sound detection system because usually it was in the back of the store.
Yeah,
it was in the back of the store, so you were away from like the front desk because you don't want to advertise your smut like right where people are walking.
Right next to the Disney movies.
Right, exactly. So you had to like go into the back, and I think they were like wood beads that.
That's true. That would make sense. They would know if anybody's going back there.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw the advent of DVDs, and that really didn't change the way the content was delivered. It just changed the medium.
Right.
Because when DVDs first came out, and it took a little while for them to get more mainstream because, again, the whole format change, drastic format change.
Yeah.
Then people had to get players and things like that. So adoption was a little bit slower to move to DVDs. And then you saw. I think about the time that DVDs really started getting popular, you started seeing the internet become more mainstream.
It was kind of kind of a weird correlation.
And you had, I think that's also about the time that people started being able to get a hold of like DVD, like personal DVD burners.
Right.
So they were able to start, making their own or bootlegging their own stuff and things like that. So, but the content delivery was essentially the same.
Yeah,
you didn't really have you'd still go to the DVD store, the rental place. You would rent a DVD, and instead of having to rewind it when you return it, you just bring it back in the plastic case.
Now, one thing that the DVDs kind of, because you couldn't really do it on VHS. Like if a VHS had, like today we take like extra features on a Blu-ray for granted. You go to a menu, you watch the outtakes, you watch deleted scenes, you watch a behind the scenes like interview with the cast, all of that kind of stuff. VHSs, if they rarely ever had anything like that, was like you had to sit through the credits, and then there was an extra little 5-minute thing at the end showing off like some bloopers or whatnot. DVDs were the first thing. Was like there was a dedicated menu for that. They had more options. They would have those bloopers, those deleted scenes, those making of vignettes, the interview with the star. They would have all that stuff, and it was in and easily accessible. You click on a menu, you go right to it. You didn't have to sit through everything. And like I don't remember what movie it was. It was probably, I can't remember what movie it was. But I'm like, bonus features. Like, I'm looking at this menu, trying to figure out how to operate. I'm like, bonus features. And, like, going to that and seeing all this extra stuff, I'm like, dude, that's really cool. Like, we take that for granted today as something that you expect to be on a movie. But when that was a new thing, like, the first couple VHS or DVDs that came out, it was strictly just the film. When they started really, using that format as what it was, a digital means of, delivering a movie, and started giving you all that extra stuff, that was a game changer. And that started to be one of the features that they would market of, here's why you should go for DVD. You get more movie. And like at first DVDs were sometimes double or triple the price of its VHS counterpart. So they had to really start marketing why it was better other than, well, it looks good. Well, because for most people, the TVs they had, you couldn't tell a difference. So not only were they trying to sell an entirely new format that the media itself is triple the price, they were trying to talk you into buying a new player, which is several $100s, and telling you how awesome it looks on a TV that literally, resolution-wise, there's no difference. So when they started doing all that extra stuff with the DVDs, I think that's what really kind of started kicking it off. And then you saw the price slowly get closer and closer to each other, to where DVDs were only $5, maybe $10 more. I mean, now, you look at it, you go to the store now, between DVD and Blu-ray, there's sometimes no difference at all. Usually it's a couple bucks. Now, if you go to a 4K Blu-ray, you're seeing the same thing happen again, is what I'm saying. But I mean, DVDs,
Right.
like those were great. You didn't have to rewind them. They had all this extra stuff on it after a while, and you started to see, since it was digital at this point instead of an analog format, companies were like, well, hang on, we can go back, take the original, on tape recorded thing, and we can clean it up a little bit. So you started seeing movies that were 20, 30, 40 years old that did look like the quality, while it was only as good as the TV that could play it on, the picture was clearer. It didn't look as grainy. The colors were brighter. Once they started doing stuff like that, it got closer in line to how movies look today. I mean, still a bit off because it was, standard def, but
Yeah, and the format wars really kind of died. Like there really wasn't a format war after VHS and Betamax.
Yeah.
In reality, like there was just an evolution.
yeah,
Like nobody like. Well, actually, sorry, there was one format war. Remember, Tim? It was the format war between HD discs
Yep.
and Blu-ray.
yep. Which obviously
was-
Blu-rays won
Right.
by quite a bit.
Right, Blu-rays run, and I believe that was actually another instance of the porn industry standardized on a format.
Yep.
I believe it happened again,
Yep.
where they
I-
just went, okay, Blu-ray.
Yep. Well, I mean, like the that was the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. PS3 had Blu-ray built into it. So
Yep.
and Sony was also one of the big proprietors and pushers of the Blu-ray format. So their whole thing was, well, hey, you've already got your PS3. Why bother looking at HD DVD? We already have the player built into it. You're going to buy your new game system? Get a player with it. When the PS3 came out, fun fact, when the PS3 came out, it was the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market, and feature-wise had the most features, because not only was it a Blu-ray player, it was also a game player. It was also a media center. It would play your music discs. It was an all-in-one thing, and it was the cheapest.
Yep.
Xbox, while they did come out with the HD DVD add-on for it, it was an add-on. You had to buy extra for it. So it was harder for them to push it, because it was, well, hey, you bought your game system. Do you want to go ahead and buy this player that's almost as much as the system you just paid for to watch movies that you don't own yet? They look great.
Right.
I mean, to Microsoft's credit, that they tried to push it, but it just, the marketing was just really not great for it. And ultimately, I mean, the format obviously failed, because you don't see, HD DVD movies. You see Blu-rays and, 4K Blu-rays. Or whatever they're called.
Right.
Is that what they're still marketing them as 4K Blu-ray, or are they called something different now?
I think they just refer to it shorthand like 4K.
Right.
I mean, I think
They're
it's
the
still
Blu-rays in the
Blu-ray.
black box.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, Blu-rays, and it's kind of turned from media delivery to let's talk about the history of media.
Right.
So we're kind of hitting both topics today, folks. So sorry about that. We're a little ADD, and so is he.
What? Huh?
Squirrel.
Are we doing a thing? But no, I mean,
Hey, everybody.
I mean, we've mainly been talking about movies. I mean, games kind of parallel that quite a bit. Back in the day, Nintendo and Nintendo, Atari, and all the old game systems, it was on a physical cartridge. You bought it, and I will say this, that there was something nice today about buying a cartridge and knowing that it's yours. But the benefit with games today is, a lot of people complain, oh, this game came out, it's so broken, they've got to patch it. When you bought a Nintendo and an original Nintendo game back in the day, if the game was buggy, there was no patching it. There was no internet. The company had to issue a recall. They would notify retailers that carried it. You had to hope you still had your receipt, or even heard about the recall. But by the time it was all said and done, very few companies actually did that, because of the cost associated with printing up entirely new programmed versions of the discs, notifying all the retailers, paying to ship those things back, giving a customer a free copy of your new improved version of the game, disposing of the old ones. I don't think there were very many instances where companies even did that. So if a game was broken, You had a broken game. That's it. There was no patching it. There was no updates. There was no fixing it. Versus today,
Oh yeah, I
you've
mean
got
there was
that.
no, there was no hard disk systems
Yeah.
that were run. I mean the original Xbox was, I believe, the first
Yeah.
platform
First for
that
the
had,
built-in. Yeah.
yeah, that built it. And if you remember, that was also like a full size platter drive, and it made the thing weigh about 400
Yeah,
pounds.
dude, it did. And it was
Like
what,
if
like
your house,
the equivalent of 10 gigs, 10 or 20 gigs, I think.
I don't need, yeah,
I mean, it
something like
was
that. But I mean,
small.
it was, I mean, yeah, it was a small amount of space, but it was a huge machine at the time. Like,
Oh yeah.
if your house was ever on fire and you needed to get out, you just heave the Xbox through the window, or the wall.
You're right.
Like
It'll give you an exit.
yeah, it'll take out load-bearing studs. That
Yep.
was how big the thing was. But so yeah, I mean, there was no hard drives in these things, so you couldn't, you couldn't.
Update.
You couldn't patch it if you wanted
Yeah.
to. Like there was nowhere to store the media.
Yeah.
These things didn't have they didn't have like DVD or burners or anything in them, so there was just read discs.
Yeah.
So there was nothing that you could do. But we had, going back to content delivery now. We had the video stores that you could rent these things from, but then we had as the internet took off, we had services like Fly and Netflix.
Yeah.
And those services
and
started as
Netflix started as a physical hard copy rental service.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Netflix and GameFly both were. I mean, they were the same business model, just that different branches of the same business model.
Yeah.
GameFly did video games. Netflix did movies.
Yeah.
And literally, you would go online, go to your Netflix profile, say, I want, pick the different movies you wanted, build a queue. They would ship it to you.
Mm-hmm.
You watch it. When you're done, you send it back, and then they send you the next one in your list.
And the big thing that made Netflix popular compared to like video rental stores, you rented, movie A for 3 days and you pay a fee for that 3 days. If you don't have it back in those 3 days, they charge you per day. With Netflix, their business model was, okay, cool. Like Ian said, build a list of movies, keep them as long as you want, just pay the monthly fee. So if, you rented a movie, they shipped it to you and you're like, oh, I won't have time to watch that till this weekend and it's only Monday, you're fine. Netflix, you just keep it, watch it at your convenience, send it back, and then when they get it, they'll send you the next one. Keep that as long as you want. Which, that was, for the time, that was game-changing. You didn't have to go to the store. They would always have, like, with your big chain stores like Blockbuster, they would always have the new release movies, but they may not have that many copies. So they might all be sold out if it's a new movie. With mom and pop stores, they might only get one copy of a new release movie if they got it right away. It might be, a week or two before they're able to get one. Netflix, I don't know what their partnership, their buying team was amazing because they seem to always have the movies. And if there was ever, like, let's say a new release movie came out and, they didn't have enough to fit, the first 100 people and you were 101, they'd just skip down to the next movie on your list so that you would still have a movie. You wouldn't have to wait. And then when you return that, if that first movie was back in, they'd ship you that one then, the one that you missed out on. So it was really cool, but I can't think of any times, because I was a subscriber for Netflix back when they did it that way.
Me too.
I can't think of a single time that I didn't get the movies in order on my queue, even if they were new ones. But
I think the one that comes to mind that might have been on that list is James Cameron's Avatar, because that was stupid popular when it came out.
Yeah, it was.
So everybody and their mother, but I don't think I ever had it on my queue that I wanted.
Yeah.
I just remember, I heard about there being
like a shortage because everybody wanted
a shortage of those, right?
But then, like Netflix, they transitioned into kind of how we know them today, where it was a digital content delivery service. And I remember, like, I had the dual subscription when that was still a thing, where I could get the VHS or the DVD, or I could stream it. I mean, and this is, back when internet speeds were not nearly as fast as they are now. But I remember I had a PlayStation 3, and like Netflix now, it's just an app you download. That's all it is. The PS3 did a really weird thing when Netflix first came out. There was no dedicated app for it. You would tell them, I want to do your digital subscription. They would actually send you a Blu-ray disc that had the Netflix program on it, and you would have to put in the Netflix disc to access the movies through Netflix, because Blu-rays kind of like how they are today, are internet enabled. If you're online, there's extra features that they can do. So Netflix took advantage of that on the PS3. So you obviously had to have internet if you were doing the digital version, but you put in the Netflix Blu-ray, it would connect to the internet, see what movies are available, and you would stream it that way. But then, obviously they eventually got rid of that in favor of a dedicated app that you download. But like I remember watching that, and for the time, like that was revolutionary. That I didn't have you didn't have to download the movie, you didn't have to go to the store, you didn't have to wait on them to send you a disc. You just wait a little bit, when the movie starts loading for it to buffer, and you're just watching it. Now that being said, back in those days the internet was a lot slower than it is now, so there was a lot of buffering. There would be times where the quality was potato. But it's something that we kind of take for granted because it's just so commonplace. Like, I can grab my phone, load up Netflix or Hulu or whatever have you on it, and it's just right there.
Yeah, exactly. And buffering was one of those things that was just really
Yeah, exactly.
and you just couldn't, you wouldn't see like that kind of content and stuff. It was really annoying and those kind of things. But it was something that we were kind of used to. If people may not know this or sometimes, but YouTube is set up to like auto select resolutions depending on your internet speed. So sometimes you go to load up a movie and it's like potato quality because it's running in like 280 or something like that. You're like, what the hell? It's like, what? Why is this grainier than my grandmother's cereal? So Netflix really kind of changed the game with their content delivery system.
Oh, absolutely.
And another fun fact for you folks out there: Netflix actually offered to sell themselves to Best Buy, or not Best Buy. I'm sorry, to Blockbuster. And
really?
Blockbuster said yes. Netflix offered to sell themselves to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster said, "Yeah, I don't think this is taking off."
Which one of those companies? Well, technically, Blockbuster is still around. I think they have one location left in Alaska or something.
Yes, but the corporation Blockbuster and actually, I think the last Blockbuster actually did close.
Oh, did they then? Well,
I think they are officially gone.
Well, I know Dish Network owns the rights to the term Blockbuster now in relation to movies.
Right.
Because if any of you have Dish Network, if you have one of their older boxes, look at the front of it and you'll see a thing that just says Blockbuster. And you may have no idea what that is. It's something to do with the way the movies, or that your channels are ran through it. Blockbuster owned the rights to that, or something along those lines. Dish, though, technically has to put that logo on there because of the way it works. Or the way that... it's something weird like that, but...
Right.
But that's sad, yeah.
Fair enough.
I didn't know the last Blockbuster finally closed. That's kind of sad.
No, I'm incorrect, actually. Sorry, the last Blockbuster is still open, and it is actually located in Bend, Oregon.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
According to Wikipedia, anyway.
Well, there we go. Learn something today, folks. Educational.
Yes, exactly. So, Netflix really, again, they were kind of a game changer. But the other thing that they really did that was changing the game was they went after the big players and started developing their own content.
Yeah, especially
Netflix
these last
original
couple of years,
content. Yeah, and if you look at Netflix, they are a powerhouse of original content.
Oh, yeah.
They spend billions of dollars on content every year. Mm-hmm. Not only do they stream stuff, stream other people's content through licensing, they develop original content. And this is where we're starting to get into the content wars. And I personally feel like we're oversaturated with content providers at this point, because you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got Disney Plus, you've got Discovery Plus, you've got Hulu,
Paramount Plus, or whatever it's called.
Paramount Plus, you've got Stars Plus. What is with pluses, everybody? I don't get it. Yeah, NBC's Peacock, CBS Go, or whatever it is, CBS Now, or whatever. I don't know. What is HBO Max,
Funimation, Crunchyroll,
right.
Verve. I mean, the list goes on and on. Like, people used to say, hey, cancel your cable subscription. Netflix and Hulu are cheaper. Well, now all the networks have their own things. Like, if you priced all these out, if you got all the subscription services that are out, you're paying astronomically more than what it would be to get a cable package that has almost all of those, except for like the independent ones like, Netflix. Almost all that content and all those other carriers you can get on a cable package for a lot cheaper.
Right. The difference in these providers now, like these different provider packages now, though, is your access to old media.
Yeah.
Cable, you're kind of stuck watching whatever is on TV.
Yeah, that is the definite point towards the digital services.
Right. But you can't really like watch, older stuff. Like these services have archives and stuff like that. Like, I have Discovery Plus because it's $5 a month.
Oh, that's not bad.
Or something
that's
like
not bad.
that. Right, and it's probably the best deal out there if you're into the Discovery Network content, because it's like $5 a month, and you have thousands of shows. Like I think they have 24 networks or something like that.
Discovery, I mean, they've got a crap ton of originals.
Right. I mean, like I'm a big fan of Deadliest Catch. Like I think it's a fun show. I don't know why.
Really?
I do. Yeah, I love Deadliest Catch. I think it's great.
I liked Mythbusters, so I mean,
I love Mythbusters too. But I can go on Discovery Plus and watch literally every episode of either of those shows.
Huh.
They have every episode of every season, every episode of those shows. So I have access to this media content that is just that's there. But we started talking a little bit about like these different wars, like these content wars and things like that. Netflix really had to start like developing its own content because these other people were starting to develop their own streaming services, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to license our stuff to you anymore because we want them. Like, we don't want to give you some of the money. Like, we want all of the money.
We want all the money. Yep.
Right. So that's why you see like all of the Disney stuff is no longer on Netflix. What they do have on there is
the Marvel stuff is no longer on there.
Right. What they do have on there exists. Is only there just due to prior licensing agreements and things like that.
But as soon as those licenses are up, they're pulled.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think like a good example, Solo, Star Wars Solo, was on, I think, Netflix or Hulu, one of them, after Disney Plus had launched and put up their entire Star Wars thing because of a prior licensing agreement. But once that license is up, boom, that show's pulled, like a day later, it's on Disney Plus.
Right. Actually, some of the earlier Marvel movies, I believe, Infinity War, actually was originally on Netflix, and Disney Plus came out, and you couldn't get Infinity War on there because the license agreement was still in with Netflix.
Yep.
And so, but again, to Tim's point, the day that license agreement ended, guess where Infinity War should be?
Exactly. Yep.
So, you have all these different content providers out there, and there's just a huge saturation of content. Like, there is so much stuff out there to watch. And, Tim and I have talked about, like, anime. We're big anime fans and things like that. And you've got, like, as Tim said, VRV. Really, the three main, like, paid providers in the States are Funimation, Crunchyroll, and HIDIVE.
Yeah.
They're the three main content providers. Tim mentioned VRV earlier, Verve, or whatever you want to call it.
I think it's Verve. I think
that's actually a service. Crunchyroll owns them, so if you pay for their if you pay for the VRV subscription, you get all of the stuff for VRV and a Crunchyroll Premium subscription at the same time.
There you go.
And they also have partnered with HIDIVE, so you get some of their library as well. So it's kind of like an all-in-one. No, it's kind of an all-in-one shop.
We're not sponsored by any of these streaming services, although I mean, Funimation, if you want to kick us, hey, we will shill to you.
Right, kick us some money, not kick us to court. But I have a Funimation subscription. My price is actually lower than most because I've had a Funimation subscription for a while, and I'm grandfathered in on the old pricing.
Nice.
They're just like, hey, you've been around for a while. We're not going to up your bill yet.
That's pretty.
I don't know when they're going to up my bill, but they're just like, yeah, you can keep the old price.
See, versus like Netflix, like I remember when I had the version, the digital version of Netflix, it was like $5, maybe $10 a month at most, and now it's like.
I think when I first subscribed to it for the digital and DVD version, I think I paid $8.99 a month.
I think so. Yeah, it was under
And
10 bucks.
now it's $14.99 a month.
Yeah, so I mean, $14.99 a month does. I mean, realistically, $15 a month is not bad. But like Netflix, it seemed like for a while there that it was just as soon as they announced one price hike, they were already announcing the next price hike.
Right.
And it was always a buck or two, and it's now gone up. But it's interesting that a lot of these streaming companies are starting to partner with other companies that maybe are under the same parent company umbrella. Like, if you have Verizon as an example, and you have some of their newer unlimited plans, you get Disney Plus, you get Hulu, you get ESPN Plus. ESPN Plus, there's another one we forgot about. You get all those included with.
Yeah, but you and I aren't sports guys, so we don't.
We're not. But like, you get those services for having a phone plan now, so it's. I'm interested to see if Disney and Verizon like have some kind of like common like co-ownership somewhere, or if it's just Verizon decided, hey, we're going to go with those guys to add value to our plans. I'd be interested to see how that actually worked out. But it's nice that having Verizon myself, I don't have to pay for my Hulu or my Disney Plus. I just have them.
I think some of that's going to be also, like AT&T is AT&T Time Warner.
Yeah.
So, Time Warner, WB, they're kind of like rivals to Disney and things like that. So,
well, I mean, WB does almost like they're big in bed with DC Comics. Disney is Marvel.
Well, yeah, I mean, WB owns DC Comics, so that's why. So they're gonna kind of probably find the horse that they're gonna hitch their wagon to that horse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes really sense.
Right. Like I said, there's just this huge saturation of content. Like there's just a ridiculous amount of content coming out just constantly. Like it's very difficult to stay up with. We've done some preview show, some discussion show, like review shows. We've done Mando. We did WandaVision. We haven't done another one. We haven't done another one since then because my lazy ass still hasn't finished some of the newer shows.
I was going to say one of us has finished Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's a 50-50 shot. Your first two guesses don't count. Have you even started Loki yet?
No.
Who am I supposed to gush to, dude? I mean, come on. You're leaving me hanging here.
I'm caught up on Bad Batch, except for yesterday's episode, or for today's episode. I haven't watched today's yet.
I know we're getting off on a tangent. Like, when Bad Batch, like when it first came out, you and your brother were like super gung-ho, and I was kind of meh about it. I watched, like, I think by the time I watched it, the first 4 or 5 episodes were up. I watched the first one. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep watching this. And, like, the last couple weeks, I haven't watched it. Mostly because typically the Marvel shows had came out on Fridays prior to Loki. So I would watch my Marvel show that week, and I would watch Bad Batch. Well, now Loki comes out on Wednesdays, and that's throwing my schedule all kinds of off. Because I need to watch it on release day. Because my nephew, the edgelord that he is, and I hope he's listening to this, Adam, he posts a lot of memes, which are all spoilers for Loki, so I have to watch it before on launch day. Otherwise, he will post something that spoils it for me. But anyway, getting back to digital distribution, like Disney has been, as an example, with Disney Plus, like all of their original shows so far, I can't say that a single one of them has been bad. Mandalorian was amazing. WandaVision was amazing. Falcon and Winter Soldier was amazing. Loki is amazing so far. Bad Batch is really good. I mean,
they did the last season, the final season of Clone Wars.
Yes, which was amazing.
Which was, oh god, the final episode still gives me chills. Like I got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And even some of their like Disney, like their more kid-friendly Disney content has been really good. My youngest daughter loves watching Bluey. Mm-hmm. It's about some like British dog and his family.
Okay.
He's named Bluey. And it's a cute show. It's got a good message. Like it's really good. Like she enjoys watching it.
Yeah.
That Disney has been using it to release their movies. Their new movies. My kids watched Luca when it came out. My kids watched Raya and the Last Dragon. They really like these movies.
Like Disney, like I both love and hate the way they're doing their movies because like their movies will be out day and date with the theater for an additional fee.
Right.
But after a while, the fee goes away. Like Raya and the Last Dragon is now just free on Disney Plus. Because
Right.
I'm cheap, I waited a couple weeks and I watched it, and like that was a really good film. Like I am half tempted to, because I think Black Widow's what, next week.
Yeah, I think so.
I am, because I've been craving a new Marvel movie for a while. I mean, WandaVision, Falcon and Soldier, and Loki have all kind of scratched that itch a little bit. But like, I want to see the next movie, so I may very well buy Black Widow, because I'm actually really looking forward to that one.
I mean, you never know. That one we might just have to go and see in theaters.
I mean, we can now.
Right, we can. I got my 5G and booster, so
There you go. I'll say my signal's gotten a lot better.
right.
And the doctor says the tail will fall off any day now. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I can still taste the color purple, but
yeah.
it's a little weird. Anyway, so the content delivery, there's so much content out there, and it's continuing to grow and expand every day. Like, there's just so many shows, movies, television, all of it. Like, everybody's producing their own stuff, and I've been relatively impressed, really, by like the amount of content that's out there.
Right. Well, I mean,
and the quality of it, as well. Like, when you have this much content, you kind of fear that you're gonna get a lot of shit. And admittedly, there is a lot of crap.
I mean, there is some stuff that's really bad. Well, and like, wasn't it who did Netflix did Jupiter's Legacy, the live action superhero thing that wasn't The Boys.
Yeah.
And like from what I heard, like people that watched it said it was really, really good. It had one season and they already canceled it.
Yeah, they didn't get the viewership that they were hoping for, because I believe, if I remember correctly, Netflix bases its, like, they're on the Nielsen rating lists, I think, but they don't
I think so.
care. They don't really care about that. What they care is how many subscriptions they get when they release these new shows, this new content. Like, Jupiter's Legacy did not bring in the subscriptions like they were hoping.
People that already had Netflix watched it, but not very many new people signed up to watch it. Yep.
Right. I mean, if you look at things like The Witcher, people flocked in droves. I think you were one of them, right?
Like, you can't. I renewed because like I didn't have Netflix for the longest time. I renewed Netflix just to watch Witcher, and I'll be honest, Netflix, if you're listening, if you're watching, I'm sorry. Once I binged Witcher, I canceled. Once season 2 comes out, I will be more than happy to give you my money again.
See, Netflix,
I may actually keep Netflix, because like a lot of, like, you've been telling me about a lot of their original shows, and I'm like, man, I really need to watch that.
Yeah, and Netflix, I still have a subscription for you, so I'm not the Luddite amongst this. So if you want to, I'll shill for you. And it'll be all mine.
You know what, Netflix? I don't even want money. Just give me a free subscription, and I will shill for you. You don't even have to pay me. Just give me a subscription.
Yeah, they've got a ton of new content coming out, especially like their animated content. They're partnering with some pretty big name studio, like anime studios like MAPPA, Production IG. Madhouse, and the studio that did the Castlevania series. Like, they're doing the new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe series.
Okay,
the Kevin Smith show.
That may very well, apart from Witcher, that may very well get me to sign back up. See, what I think Disney did a really great thing with making their digital distribution shows episodic and weekly. Because, like, when Witcher came out, the whole thing was out. You could just binge the whole season. When Mandalorian came out, you got one episode a week. So you could either pay, watch it when it comes out, know what it's about right away, and just keep your subscription going for 2 months? Or, well, no, longer than 2 months. I mean, if you consider both seasons, several months. Or
that was where, sorry to interrupt you, but that's also where Disney has figured out the thing too, because they're also staggering their like major releases. So you're not just going, binging. You're not watching, WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier back to back,
Yeah.
and then having to wait a week. You're going WandaVision, Loki or Falcon,
Yep.
Loki, and then you've got the other content, the other side of the house, like the Lucasfilm side of the house, where you got like Bad Batch. And so yeah, you're kind of parallel watching some things,
Yeah.
but you're not getting all of the content right here, right now. You got to wait for it. So they're milking that. They're milking you.
Yeah. See, like if I could give advice to Netflix, that's what I would say. If you've got a show that you know is going to bring people in, make your episodes come out weekly. Because like Witcher, I watched it all and like canceled. Like I literally paid for 1 month of Netflix. So like the $15 I paid to watch Witcher, I got my $15 out of it.
Yeah, because I mean, in reality, that's a TV series is on and releases a season on DVD or Blu-ray or something like that. Especially if it's just like a 13 episode season or something. You're paying like $15-$20 for that season,
sometimes more.
Sometimes more. Or, you buy it on like Apple Play or whatever the hell it's called now. I don't know. I don't subscribe to Apple services, so I don't know what it's called. Ben, if you're listening and watching this, I still am not gonna. You keep being a fanboy.
Ben, I don't know who you are, but I like you. But I mean, like, we've talked. You bring up, Apple Play and all that. Like, we've talked almost exclusively about how movies have gotten distributed. We really don't even need to talk about games, because games, we kind of touched on it a little bit. They pretty much followed that same parallel. They went from cartridges to discs to digital. I mean, you can still go out and buy a Blu-ray, or you can go up and get onto your phone, go on, boot up an app on whatever device you're viewing it on, and purchase it a la carte as well. So I mean, it's games. I don't want to seem like we're neglecting them, but it'd be kind of, we'd be repeating the same point. Yeah, and same thing with music. Music, same thing. Cartridge, disc, digital. It seems to be that our main consumption of media, with the exclusion of books. Books kind of followed a completely different path. But as far as games, movies, and music go, they followed that same format. Books, most people still primarily buy paper books.
I think we've talked about this a little bit as well. As for me, there's just something about the tactile feeling of a book, like feeling. It's got a certain feel in your hands. It's got a smell. It's got an experience. An auditory. An experience that you can't get with like a Kindle. Like, don't get me wrong, I have a Kindle.
Yeah.
Like, I have a Kindle. I've read a couple of books on it. Mm-hmm. My ex-wife accidentally bought the entirety of the Witcher series on her book series. Yeah, that was a fun story, because we were watching The Witcher and she was like, I said, yeah, these are based on books. So she's like looking at them on Amazon, and she accidentally hit the one-click buy button and
she bought
all of them. And it was
there's like quite a few.
Yeah, no, it was $80 in books.
Oh my gosh. Well, $80 in digital books, and like their Kindle books are usually significantly lower. Oh wow. Yeah,
no, it was $80 in digital books.
Well,
so, I have all the Witcher books now.
There you go. I mean, honestly, they're a really good read. Like after because I had played the Witcher.
Really
yeah, I had played the Witcher games. I watched watched the show. I bought the like chronological order of the stories. So I bought the first couple, read through them, and I mean, they're really good. But, books are kind of the one form of major media that didn't follow that same format. I mean, well, heck, case in point, I had pre-ordered a couple months ago from Amazon the final, they released a special edition of the Hellsing manga, hardbound in like this blood red, like faux leather collection. It was 3 total ones. The first 2 were already out. I bought them. The third one I pre-ordered, got shipped in, like 3 weeks ago. But I bought it physically because, like, to me, like, that book I absolutely love Hellsing. I love the art style, everything about it. But it's also a showpiece, it's because it's a thick, each one of them's a thick tome. Although, funny story, my kids had a doctor's appointment, And I'm like, well, while I'm sitting here in the lobby, I'm going to take my Helsing with me and I'll read it. Well, there was somebody there who, I guess, they also do therapy there. There was somebody there who was there for therapy. And, like, they see me reading this, and the Helsing, like I said, it's blood red, but it has a big black cross in the front of it. And, like, they leaned over and they said, yeah, I when times are troubling me, I often turn to the Bible as well. And, like, the page I'm on is, like, a full 2-page spread of Alucard, ripping somebody's, like the muscles out of his neck. There's blood everywhere. And all they see is the back of a book that has a cross on it. And I'm like, yeah, this brings me solace, too. So, but, yeah, it's interesting to see, how media consumption has changed. I mean, even in our lifetimes. I mean, now we're starting to get on the edge of, VR starting to really be a big thing. 3D stuff, like, didn't really take off as well. I think VR is taking off a lot better than, like, the 3D fad was. And effectively what 3D was, if any of you have been to a movie theater in the last several years, there's always, movie in 3D, and they give you the glasses. 3D TVs effectively tried to emulate that at home to varying degrees of somewhat success. But it never really caught on as an at-home thing because the way one TV displayed it might be different than the way another TV displayed it. So even if Ian and I had the same movie, we might have two different TVs. It might, like, Ian's TV may give him a mind-blowing experience the way that particular movie did 3D. But on my TV, it might be just a piss-poor experience. But vice versa, I might get another movie that looks great on my TV, but not on Ian's. There was no consistency to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we could all watch Wonder Woman 1984 and have a piss poor experience no matter where.
I wanted to like that movie. I really did. You did too. We both wanted to like that movie, and it just...
Yeah.
But hey, we didn't have to pay to watch it because digital subscription services.
Exactly. So, just like we were to our parents, that was disappointing.
That was a disappointment. Wow.
Yeah. So I think we're probably about time. We probably stretched a little bit beyond time. So sorry for the longer episode, folks. But obviously, there's a lot.
Actually, one of our shorter ones recently.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny that we went from talking about content distribution into effectively giving people a history lesson of how media has been kind of, I mean, a very, very, Cliff Notes version, but still, I mean, it's neat. Like, I'm interested to see, like, I mean, apart from the obvious 8K movies, I'm interested to see how, movies in particular are going to evolve in the next, whatever the next generation might be. Because, I mean, like DVD to Blu-ray, the big thing was it looks better. Blu-ray to 4K Blu-ray, the big thing was it looks better. I feel personally there's only so many times somebody can tell me it's going to look better before I go, it looks fine now. I mean, maybe I'm turning into my dad. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and here's another little lesson before we split for you folks. A human biology type thing. The human eye really can only see about 28 frames per second.
Yeah.
So that's why that's why things were standardized on like 30 frames per second.
Yep.
Because the human eye is limited by this. So when somebody tells you, oh, it's like 60 frames per second, like, okay, that just means a little bit less screen tearing.
It's going to look smoother, but you're not going to be able to make you're effectively only seeing half the frames. Like, my monitor, as an example, plays at 144 frames a second. So it looks really smooth, but my eyes only seeing, I'm losing 120 frames a second that my eyes can't see.
Right.
So.
Exactly. So anyway, we've talked a lot about the history of content delivery, content consumption,
streaming services, saturation.
Saturation. Did you say saturation? That's an entirely different thing.
Saturation.
That I think Bill Cosby just got a prison for.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about the next generation of content, and I think we're going to see. There's only certain areas that we can go to, and it'd be fun to really speculate.
Right.
Next time.
Next time on.
So,
Will Goku rewind his VHS? Find out next time on Dragon
he'll
Ball
only-
Nerds.
he will
Maybe
only
we need to work
rewind
that
the
title.
he will only rewind the VHS if somebody tells him that somebody else can rewind it faster.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, we are the Non Sequitur Nerds. Obviously, if you're listening to us, you know who we are at this point. Check us out on Twitter at Non Sequitur Nerd. Check us out on Facebook, where we are actually fairly active. Catch all of our videos on YouTube. And, of course, thank you to our podcast hosting platform, Anchor.fm, where we have all of our podcasts obviously hosted, and we can, from there, branch out to our other distributors, Spotify, Google, Apple, and like 4 or 5 different content providers. Sorry, I don't remember who you are, because there's a lot of them.
We have pretty much, if you have a platform, or if you have a podcasting platform on your phone or computer or wherever, we're probably on it now.
Yes, exactly. So, thank you again for watching and listening, whatever. And we hope to catch you next time. Yeah, so, you know, I think we're good. So, for Non Sequitur Nerds, I'm Ian.
And I'm Tim. Good night, everybody.
Good night.